Welcome to the Real Estate Pros Show, where we interview real estate investing professionals from coast to coast, as well as the service providers that serve the real estate investing industry. Our goal is simple: share what's working now to help you improve and scale your business to the next level and meet the pros that can help you get there. Real Estate Pros is powered by Investor Fuel, America's leader in helping real estate investors and professionals build the business you need to live the life you've always dreamed of. Let's start today's show. Property insurance for real estate investors doesn't have to be difficult, but it does need to be there to protect you when you need it. MyInvestorInsurance.com not only provides insurance at 15 to 30% cheaper than traditional agencies, it's built specifically for real estate investors like you. You can set up an account in about 2 minutes, get quotes on properties, turn on and turn off insurance for your fix and flip or rental properties in around 2 minutes without having to talk to anyone directly, all through our portal. There's no better way or faster way to make sure you've got the coverage you need to protect you, and no more lengthy policies either. Once you're set up, you're billed monthly and prorated by the day for however long your policy is active. It's powered by MSI, the third largest independent MGA, with 1.5 million customers and more than $1 billion in cumulative premiums written. Get set up today in about 2 minutes at myinvestorinsurance.com/fuel.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Real Estate Pros podcast by Investor Fuel, the nation's premier real estate mastermind. I'm your host, Dylan Silver, and today on the show we have Emin Muhammad, the founder of Colbyco LLC, with a business technology background, computer scientist, real estate investor, and graduate of Pace University, and New Jersey located, close to my home. I was raised in New Jersey. Emin, welcome to the show.
Hey, Dylan, thanks for having me. And I'm so excited to be here at the Real Estate Pros podcast. And yes, we're both fellow Jerseyans, although most of my homes are in the greater Boston area, but that's another story for later on.
I didn't tell you this, but I lived in Boston for 6 years. Very cold city. That's why I'm not there. Very, very cold. Were you living in Boston for a while?
Yes. Well, my office was there, and my I had a relationship, and my partner was out there, and my job, I worked for the state, for state government for a number of years. So for the Commonwealth, we developed software, the welfare system. And it's not called welfare system anymore, probably not since the 90s, but I'm dating myself. We won't talk about that.
What years were you there roughly? Because I feel like there was two Bostons. There was the Boston before the Red Sox won the World Series, and then there was the Boston when every single team was winning. You had the Celtics, the Patriots, the Red Sox, the hockey team.
All of the above. And so I started way back in 98. In 2004, you're talking about the nightmare where it all turned around as a Yankee fan. So 2004 was not a great year, and it's been
We could
downhill
talk
ever
about
since.
that all day. I mean, being in New Jersey and all of my peers growing up would, they would just say the number of rings and it was always going up. And my dad's from Amherst, Massachusetts. And so the competition was heavy. But I digress. I'm sure people hear us want to talk about real estate. So let's pivot a bit here. Computer science, business and technology. It seemed like that was the way that you started out your professional career. How did you get into the real estate space?
Well, it's so funny because, like I said, I'm from Jersey. We're from Jersey. And I started working the latter part of my career. I started working, well, the middle part of my career, I started working as a consultant. We would fly around the country building out these multi-tier systems, sophisticated system, $1 million systems. And we always needed furnished housing. Back in the day, they called it corporate housing, and they probably still call it corporate housing. But as a result, I really grew fond of the whole model of furnished housing, whether you're in town for business, and nowadays it's for leisure travel. But what happened is, while I was flying around the country, my ex-wife and I ended up buying investment properties because both of us got our real estate license, and so we moonlighted as realtors. And during the day I would develop software, and at night I would moonlight as a property manager for my properties.
Wow, this is exciting to me because I didn't let you know this before we hopped on, but I'm actually in an engineering boot camp. It's not a school. I don't get a degree, but it's like a year-long course where that you put together a portfolio. So I may use that later on. It's full stack web development, And also, yesterday at 11 a.m. Texas time, I passed my real estate exam. So thank God for that. It was not an easy exam, as you know, and it's gotten harder, I feel like, with everything that's happened. So my path, in some ways, may God willing, mirror yours to some degree. Now, when you were buying these investment properties, tell us about the first deal, or maybe the first couple deals, if you remember them.
Stop living on an island and join the #1 mastermind in America for professional real estate investors. Investor Fuel is a community of hundreds of the nation's top investors working together to build stronger businesses and better lives. In addition to the amazing community of real estate investors acting as a board of advisors for one another, Investor Fuel members have access to 100% funding on purchase and repairs for our members only, a health insurance program, and benefits and discounts that more than pays for the membership of most of our members, meaning it's actually costing you money to not be a member of Investor Fuel. If you're looking to scale your business and build a business that allows you to live the life of your dreams, please visit investorfuel.com today and book a call with our team.
Well, it's funny because when we started buying homes, we weren't, although I grew a appreciation for short-term rent or furnished housing, once my ex-wife and I ended up buying homes, we listed them as a rental, a traditional rental, a long-term rental. And, we go in another state and make a long story short, we ended up buying 6 homes at the time, and they all were long-term traditional rentals. And then I was reading, this is around 9/11, so it was like 1990, 2000, 2001. I was reading an article, I'm not sure if it was the Wall Street Journal or Money Magazine, one of the periodicals. And it was this new kid on the block called Vacation Rentals by Owner. VRBO nowadays they call it. It was brought by HomeAway. But it was a mom and pop shop at the time, and they built this website. It was just basically a big billboard. Hey, if you have a home listed on our website, VRBO, put your contact information, people will call you. There was no real-time bookings. There was no real online engagement. It was just a billboard. And we said, oh, this might be the answer because we were having problems with long-term tenants. They weren't paying, a fraction of them weren't paying on time. We didn't have access to our homes, and we had great properties. We had one condo at the time, one of the 6 homes had a rooftop swimming pool. We had a long-term renter in there. So how the heck would we be have the opportunity to get inside and enjoy it? We didn't have the opportunity. So after reading this article, we're like, huh, this might be the way to go. We can double or triple our nightly rate. Well, it will only take us, if it's triple, 10 days to secure what we're securing on a monthly basis. And plus we'll have flexibility, we'll have freedom. And so that's what we did. We took one of the properties and we converted it. We transformed it from a long term to a short term. And then fast forward 10 years later, I left corporate, maybe 15 years later, I left corporate and ended up turning my short term moonlighting venture into a long term, full time entrepreneur venture for me. And that's where I am right now.
Now, Iman, were all these properties, the six that you speak of, in the Boston area? Where were they located?
No, they were all over because I was in Atlanta on a project. So we bought a house in Atlanta. I was in Colorado on a project. We bought a house in Colorado. And so, yeah, it was kind of all over the place. Virginia, bought a house in Virginia, and the balance in New Jersey.
So when you were doing this, it sounds like was it early 2000s, the first couple?
Yes, early
Early
2000. Yep.
2000s. So, I'm thinking, pre-iPhone, this is not, the communication's different. How are you managing, your renters and ensuring, maintenance is being done? Right now it's instant communication, but I'm imagining you're picking up the phone and being not in the state I'm imagining some growing pains there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There were challenges, especially since we were all over the place. But remember, I'm a computer scientist, so I had a solution in place. And what I created was something called a resource database, a vendor database. And based on category, based on location, we would have a list of action takers, a list of vendors that will be able to take advantage and fulfill the reservations because that's a big part of short-term rentals. There's a lot of moving parts. And if you don't have systems in place, if you don't have organizations in place, it really could be tough, especially if you have multiple properties and multiple locations. And that's what we teach our landlords now. I mean, we do we when I started my company, it was done for you. So as a landlord. You might be a professional by day and you need someone to property manage a property. They will hire us. And now we're teaching folks how to do it because, we practice in the greater Boston and New Jersey area, but what about California? What about Canada internationally? So now we teach folks how to transform their rental property and how to run operations because, like you said, if you don't have vendors in place on call, and back then, we just had the internet, we had email, we had phone, which would suffice. The important thing is we had that vendor database, that resource database.
If you're looking for consistent, high-quality leads, look no further than Investor Machine. Investor Machine isn't just another agency, it's the most sophisticated, data-driven lead generation company on the planet for real estate investors, and serves the role of being not just a lead generator for your business, but a marketing partner that is helping you achieve your goals along the way. Go to investormachine.com to learn more and schedule a call with our team today.
I have so many questions. We could probably talk a whole another podcast just about that, but I want to keep it a little high level so that we can hit all the things that I have on the schedule here. Um, Going from the longer term rental to the short term rentals, and you mentioned VRBO, which has grown, of course. But then you get this new kid on the block, and I'm curious to hear what your initial thought was and what you think of their success. Airbnb, right? Which is all over the world. I spoke with a gentleman last week who's a younger guy in Miami. All he does is manage the communications and marketing for short-term rentals, specifically Airbnb, in the United States, Dominican Republic, Ghana, and Belize. And so that's his job, right? He doesn't do the cleaning staff. He doesn't own the deeds. He just manages. So all these different ways. What was your initial perspective when you saw from a computer science angle Airbnb, and what do you think of their success?
Oh, it's pretty amazing. And it really goes to show you that if you have a great strategic plan in place and you have the financing, you can really go a long way. So VRBO started back in, I guess it was 2000 when I read that article. So they probably started right before that. And again, it was a mom and pop shop. They ended up selling that company. Probably made a few million selling it and to HomeAway, that group, and Expedia is the group. And so the valuation nowadays is they probably spent $2 million paying off the mom and pop owners. And now it's worth probably close to a half a billion. Who knows? But I know it's a lot. And so, but it's funny because I started before Airbnb, VRBO started before Airbnb, and you have this new jack Airbnb come on board, and they blowing everybody out the water.
Blowing everybody.
VRBO, yeah, VRBO is still a close second, I'm sure, Expedia, but they spent a lot of money to get up and running. But it just goes to show you strategic planning is so important, finance and having a great plan in place. And that's why our curriculum, I'm talking about I have two sides, I have two tracks. I have the done for you side and I have the e-learning side. And both sides we implement strategic planning. And it from an Airbnb standpoint, I'm pretty sure they had great strategic planning and they are where they are right now, and as a result.
I was talking about this we had a builder on the show yesterday, talking about how the service space is ripe for a type of Airbnb disruption because a lot of these contractors are what people are calling, chuck in a truck. You really don't know too much. You don't see the job history. Most of it is very small scale. Sometimes you deal with, unfortunately, a little bit of malfeasance, and they don't always have the greatest reputation, contractors. But Airbnb, on the other hand, allows folks to rate the host and the host to rate the guest. And you can also see the ratings. I believe you can see potentially like the number of duration that they've been around. And so this is really kind of revolutionary. Uber does a similar thing. I believe you can still rate guests. Because, prior to that, when you would go check into a hotel or when you would go to rent anything, people aren't able to see your track record, right? So now it's like, well, if I have a home and I want to Airbnb it out during the summer because I'm not going to be there, but I don't know if I necessarily feel comfortable with just anybody coming in. You can choose your guest, right? And as a guest, you can choose not just how nice it looks, but based on the reviews. So even me, when I'm traveling and I love to go abroad, um, I'm looking at, well, I can get a hotel or I can go Airbnb and get all these amenities, look super nice. It's like a home away from home. And I can say, oh, look, all these people, all these Americans booked it.
Yeah, that's a great point. But I don't know if it was so much revolutionary because I don't know if you remember TripAdvisor, FlipKey, their claim to fame was really based on reviews.
Mhm.
And so, if they had those, what are those magazine copies of TripAdvisor, and this really was a rating system. And so, what Airbnb did, they copied off the VRBOs of the world. They probably copied off some of the smaller property managers like Colbyco of the world. Found out what they were doing right, copied off the TripAdvisors, and they put it all into a pot of soup, and they stirred it up, and they strategically planned, and they made everything better and made everything more accessible through that system. So I think Airbnb used both a combination of copying, duplicating best practices, in addition to, strategic planning, some of their own bright ideas. So I think the combination really helped them out a lot.
Uh, and Iman, to your point, the reason why I love Airbnb, and there's a lot of investors who I work with in DFW who use Airbnb, is because the communication is like seamless. Like you're going from weeks out to communicating to checking in to leaving to if there's issues, you can. It's just I feel so comfortable with it. You're in the short term rental space. Is a lot of your students and your business geared towards the Airbnbs of the world and figuring out how to capitalize on that?
If you're a new or newer real estate investor looking to launch or grow your real estate investing business, please check out Investor Fuel Club. It's a coaching community, but unlike anything you've ever seen before. And you can actually partner with members of our mastermind from coast to coast on deals right in your market. There's no better opportunity to build a consistent business than to literally partner with pros to help you avoid costly mistakes, avoid the need for capital to do deals, and help you eliminate your fears as you're starting your business. Learn more about Investor Fuel Club at investorfuel.com/club.
Yes, it makes up one of the pieces of the overall strategy, because as if it, from a strategic standpoint, you never want to put all your eggs in one basket. If you look at TikTok nowadays, whereas the chances of going away, there is a chance. I don't know if there's a high chance or but the point I'm trying to make is you never want to put your eggs in one basket. So if you have a
Right.
strategic plan and that's part of the mix, I think that's the way to go. Maybe have a mixture of having your own direct website with your own marketing plan in place. Take advantage of VRBO of the worlds. And once you have that strategic plan and how you're going to, like, if something, God forbid, goes wrong, you have that strategic plan, you have that quarterly plan, you have what's happening where you need to look down the road. Because, when you plan, you really have to plan out a year, 2 years, 5 years out. And you have to always know what's coming before you, because that's the only way you can pivot if need be. If you look at AI nowadays, if you don't have that into your long-term strategic planning, or even short-term, you're really going to find yourself on the out. So I recommend the same with using a tool like Airbnb. Make sure you have use it to complement your business model and not solely rely on it. A big part of what we teach is how do you streamline operations? How do you integrate all these different systems? And when you develop software, you want to develop in a component-based way, or app, because you want to be able to disconnect and plug in something new. Disconnect and plug in something new to keep your operations going. So
Talking about the not putting all your eggs in one basket, I can relate to this. I don't have any deeds in my name yet, but God willing, I will here someday soon. And before we hopped on the show, we were talking about, your background, and then even on the show, talking about your background with computer science and working in that career while also having a real estate license. And I'm hopefully going down a similar path here. But if you have all your eggs in one basket, like some people might with the Airbnb, and what happened last year in DFW, specifically in Addison, which is like a part of Dallas, they banned Airbnb. And I don't know if they've since changed that or if that's gone away. This is about 2 years ago, 2023. They banned Airbnb. It was kind of the talk of the town. So you really can't have all your Airbnb, or you can't have all your eggs in one basket. Is that something that you're looking out for? Are you kind of checking I don't know if it's the ordinances or the zoning rules and how this is approached at a local level with Airbnb? And then the follow-up to that question is, how is Airbnb doing in northern New Jersey? Is there any difficulties there?
Well, that's a great question. And when we teach folks how to transform their rental property, and when I say transform, it's not always from long term to short term. Sometimes it's commercial to residential. Sometimes it's just reimagining your space. I mean, I had a summit recently, and I had a 3-day summit, and it was related to the three pillars I'm about to talk about. On day one was pillar one, day two was pillar two, and day three was pillar three. And so one of our expert speakers, we had speakers talking about each area of their expertise, and one had a storage facility. So you would think, how do you reimagine space? So when I talk about property transformation, it could be both commercial, residential. And so to answer your question, the first pillar of transformation is doing your analysis. And whenever we develop software, it's the same way. If you see Apple come out with a new version, they do an iteration and they go through the entire process, analysis, design, and implementation. So during analysis phase, you really want to look at what the compliance, what the regulations in your area looks like. And my recommendation to folks is, if the area you're in does not have regulations, or if you're looking to invest in the area, you should really invest in an area that already have regulations in place. So, give you an example in Salem, in Massachusetts, where the witches of Eastwick were filmed, I'm guessing. But anyway, Salem, Massachusetts, at first, landlords were able to rent their homes out as a short-term rental. When regulations came on board, it was disallowed. So folks in Salem they were caught out there. Another example is in Boston. They started investing in this is downtown Boston. A lot of real estate investors started building up um residential homes for the purpose of real estate. And then regulations came in and they had to reimagine what they were going to do. So the point I'm trying to make is, if you have the opportunity, if you're looking to, you're aspiring landlord, you're looking to invest, look for those places that already have regulations in place and make sure they are work out to your advantage. And if your location doesn't have regulations, and somewhere down the line they do incorporate compliance and regulations, you want to look at the fine print and see if there's a way around. And there's sometimes you just can't get around it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like to your point, Iman, you can't put your eggs in one basket. I think if you can have multiple strategies, that's really the way to go. Sometimes people have to shift. I talk in other podcasts about kind of the trajectory. I see a lot of people who want to get into real estate investing, not necessarily selling, but investing. And for me and many others, it's not knowing how to get in. Literally no idea. I was working for Nissan on the sales floor selling cars, and I had no idea how to get in. And so I was reading books. This is about 2022 time frame. Didn't really know. Going to RIAs. Kind of, unfortunately for me, a lot of not action, a lot of thinking. Not action, a lot of thinking. Finally, I paid a bunch of money, go to a conference, and was blown away. I was like, all these people have all this property. I see myself in this person. I see myself, another person from New Jersey, right? And so from there, I did my first couple wholesale deals, which were super hard. I did not know anything. I did a couple more wholesale deals. Now I'm probably up to somewhere around 20 wholesale deals in the last year and a half. So I kind of have my stripes. And now I'm looking forward to, okay, let me get my nest egg up so that I can do my own fix and flip. from fix and flip, I could potentially do buy and hold, short-term rentals, right? And then from there, what I've been told from people on the podcast is it's tough right now in Texas to uh, be profitable on these fix and flips. The margins are lower and lower. So we're seeing people going from fixing and flipping to then being note buyers, to hard money lenders, construction loans, and really taking themselves to a different area of the business. And so I'm curious, Iman, if you saw maybe a similar or parallel trajectory for yourself in your real estate career, or was it divine intervention that you kind of ended up where you are?
No, I kind of just bumped into it because I already had a property management business. As a landlord, I had 6 homes my ex-wife and I owned, and we just rented them out as everyone else does. Historically, done for years and years and decades, long-term rentals. We read this article, and plus being in, like I mentioned earlier, in a corporate apartment space. I mean, once I read the article, I was familiar because of my familiar with the model because of my corporate apartment, and plus I already had homes. So as far as it wasn't planned, I just came across an article and say, hey, let's flip it. But what I realized after flipping it, if you really need a strategic approach because it's so many moving parts. But the
Yeah.
advantages to having a short-term rental versus a long-term rental is just on so many fronts. I mean, you can double or triple your rental income. That's one thing.
Yeah.
Streamlining operations is so tough. So you need to make sure you have processes in place. And with that said, once you have those processes in place, you have the freedom and flexibility to enjoy your property on your terms whenever you want. You may want to block it out the whole month of June or 2 weeks in June. It's just, I kind of bumped into it, but what I learned the hard way, and it took probably a decades of really making mistakes to get it really fine-tuned, is you have to have a strategic plan. You have to have a design to match those requirements from that plan. And then you need to have a facility, a way to implement. Do you need hardware? Do you need software? And obviously you need human resources. How does that fit into play? And then you have revenue coming in. When you have long-term rental model, you basically have one revenue stream, which is our rents. Everything is taken from rent. However, when you have short-term rentals, you have so many places where you can generate revenue. You can generate revenue, for example, just off the top of my head, cleaning fees. You have special
Yeah.
event fees. I mean, oftentimes in our homes, we host movies. So, you really should look at one of my summit sessions and talk about how a really creative way of not only owning a vacation rental, but also invest in a movie at the same time, where they make a movie based, and the backdrop is the home. And so that's
Mm.
very common. So there's so many revenue streams, but how do you capture all that revenue? Especially if you're a smaller property manager, we don't have these big financial systems. How do you configure QuickBooks to capture all those different types of revenues, and how do you create a profit and loss statement where you can see exactly what you're doing? So that's what we teach our homeowners who don't do who choose to do it themselves, but they take advantage of the formal education, the formal learning from us.
Right, right. I think having that guidance and the folks that you're coaching is really invaluable. I tell folks, if I could have, I would have done it sooner. I figured I could do it from, reading and watching YouTube videos, but there's honestly nothing that compares to what I would call education through osmosis, through just being in the room or being on a call like this. I can't quite put my finger on it, but there's truly something about regular, frequent feedback from someone who's doing it or done it many, many times. It just somehow changes both your belief system. It's like this is proof of concept. Iman's been doing this for, literally more than a decade, and 2 decades, right? And so if I can see someone else doing this and I'm regularly discussing this with him, he's giving me the feedback. It goes from I can't do this, what do I have to do, to then how could I not do this? I have, my nest egg set up. I have the mentor in place in Iman. And then I also know that he's done it himself. So it's like proof of concept.
Oh, absolutely. There's no replacement for accountability from someone who's been through the trenches. And one of the one of the biggest tools in my tool chest is the whole idea of owning your data. You have to own your data for the strategic plan. And, not only your data, you need to have information about others, like Airbnb we used as an example. They use data from VRBO earlier. They probably looked around at some of the smallest property managers. So you want to have your data, but you also want to have your research based on other folks' data. And so my concept of owning your data is really a big part of what we teach. Own your data and how to own your data. And owning, just to give you a nightmare scenario with not owning your data is, well, two scenarios. One with Airbnb, they tend to be guest focused. That's their customer. They're not so much a homeowner focused company. So if there's some kind of dispute, they 9 times out of 10 they'll side with the guest. And the same with the information, the data. They try to own all of the data. Like, for example, they won't share their email address of your guests. And so you have to make sure you do due diligence and make sure you capture that information. And also, and then do you have a incoming a client database and where you manage and you're advertising to creating your own list, for example, vendor database. I talked about that earlier. Um, and also, I mean, once you have that customers, there's a lot of scam also in this business. Well, everywhere. I mean, and so how do you flag a guest as a fraud person, and how do you work around that? Make sure you're not, you know, going to be hit with a chargeback. So
Yeah, there's a lot of that. I mean, I was just talking with a Airbnb owner, one of my mentors the other day, who was talking about these people somehow. I'm probably mischaracterizing this slightly here, but either added a pet or something like this so that they could get around paying a cancellation fee. And so he saw it and he saw that a pet was added. He clicked OK, and then they canceled, and he's like, ah, they got me, And so there's these like little tricks that people can do to kind of like I don't want to say, weasel out, but something along these lines. So it's like you do have to be savvy. You do have to be able to pivot. We are coming up on time here, Iman. How can folks get a hold of you?
well, I have a free gift for everyone. If you're interested in the short-term rental space, I have something called 10 Steps to Transform Your Rental Property. We also have a comparison between long-term and short-term. So I'll make sure you have the link, Dylan, and you can share it with the audience. I can also be reached at Emin, Emin, at colbycoco.com. And you could just put in Real Estate Pros or Dylan's name, and I'll get that free resource out to you. Really, the 10 steps you need in order to transform your rental property. Really valuable resource. And yeah, that'd be great.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, thank you for being on the show here, Iman. And to our listeners, regardless of what background you're in, if you're looking to scale your real estate business, or if you're just trying to get in, I believe folks like Iman can be a great resource, especially if you're positioning yourself in the short-term rental space. So this wraps up another episode of the Real Estate Pros podcast by Investor Fuel. I'm your host, Dylan Silver, and thank you for tuning in.
Thank you, Dylan.
Thanks for joining us for today's Real Estate Pros Show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing for your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. If you're interested in joining us as a guest of this show, please visit investorfuel.com/pros to apply. You can also check the show notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and much more. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next show.